The Joe Rogan Experience.
You know, I've gotten a bunch of messages since that film came out from other Olympic athletes, and it's been either a mix of like, "Hey, man, thank you so much," or it's just like not mad at me, just like, "What the fuck?" and then and I was actually invited. It was the bobsled team that when they actually disqualified the Russian bobsled team. And the U.S. bobsled team was then going to get the third place medal. They invited me to the ceremony. I didn't go, but it was crazy.
Yeah,
crazy.
well, Jordan said that I guess in 2020 and 2024, the Russians can't fly a flag. Like they can't be represented. Like they have to be individual athletes from Russia at the Olympics in 2020 and Tokyo. It's 2021 now.
Yeah.
And then 2024, those Olympics, you can't have a Russian flag. Like you literally can't, because of what happened that you exposed in your documentary.
Well, that's true. However, if you follow the story post Icarus with Rodchenkov, is Russia was supposed to turn over this LIMS data, which was this laboratory information management system data, in order to be reinstated into world sport. That was part of the WADA requirements, and they never basically turned it over. So WADA basically had to go after them. They reinstate them without turning over the data. Then they turn over the data. This is now December of 2019, or January. It was not that long ago, about a year ago. And when they turn over the data, they had literally manipulated all the data. And they had already got a copy of it from Rodchenkov and another guy in the lab. And they literally put notes into this LIMS data, basically trying to frame Rodchenkov for money laundering and taking bribes and all this shit. But WADA knew that this wasn't legitimate because they had the real databases already.
Oh.
So they go and they say, okay, now Russia's banned for another 4 years, right?
Wow.
And in the meantime, Russia is putting out in the media that Rodchenkov has tried to commit suicide because of the exposure that he was apparently, taking bribes for money, which he wasn't. Russia denies it again. And then it goes to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. This is literally just a couple months ago. So they were supposed to be facing another 4-year total ban. That's what WADA was recommending. The entire federation is gone. And the Court of Arbitration for Sport, which is corrupt as hell, basically knocks it down to 2 years instead of 4 years, and then basically does what they did in the 2018 Olympics, which is, okay, any Russian athlete who hasn't tested positive can compete, but they can't compete under their country's flag. But if you saw Icarus, how would you know whether or not they were positive or not? Because they were swapping out the urine, they were breaking into the bottles. So it's yeah, they're kind of banned, and at the same time, they're all going to be there. And this was looked at like a huge win for Russia. In the meantime, Rodchenkov literally sits in isolation, in hiding, under protection. But the guy just got asylum. So
you got asylum here, right?
He got asylum here.
You don't have to wear the headphones if you don't want. Are they uncomfortable?
No, they just kind of were echoing a lot. If there's a way to maybe take down the reverb on them or something, I like them.
Echoing? Really? Do you hear echo? Echo? There's a volume control. Is that better?
Yeah, I think that's better.
So Rodchenkov has got asylum here in America?
Yeah, so he's got asylum here in America, and that story is crazy too. So, in Icarus, you see this scene where basically I see him off at the airport, and that was July of 2016. So we keep, making the film. The film comes out August 2017. And then 5 months later, essentially because of the film, the IOC and their reasoned decision comes forward and bans Russia. And they cite Icarus as one of their main reasons for doing that. In the meantime, Rodchenkov is literally trying to get political asylum. And on the day of his asylum hearing, this was now a year and a half, 2 years ago. I need to get with his lawyers to get the exact date. Russia files drug trafficking charges against him in Russia on the actual day that he's supposed to go in for his asylum hearing. So what this means is that Russia had a mole within the U.S. immigration system, knowing that this was the day that Rodchenkov was supposed to get his asylum. And under international law, anybody who's been charged with drug trafficking, right, is basically immediately ineligible for asylum. So there's like a couple of things that you can be charged for that basically makes it you can't get asylum. So they charge him with drug trafficking, and the court then gets kicked out, and it takes him another year and a half, 2 years to get his asylum. And he finally just got his asylum like 4 months ago, something like that.
Wow.
Crazy.
And so, but he's still in hiding, right? Because he's got to worry about being assassinated.
Oh yeah, I mean he's still in hiding. I mean I've been able to keep in touch with the guy here and there through basically through the lawyers, and then they'll arrange through the security, and then we'll find an encrypted way to have a conversation. And last time I spoke to him was about 2 months ago, and the conversation always goes like, "Hey Grigory, how are you?" And he goes, "I'm alive." And I go, "That's great, And he goes, I'm like, "So how are you doing?" He's like, Bryan, I have to tell you." He's like, "You saved my life." And I mean, it's heavy. It's really heavy. I mean, we've tried for 3 years now to try to get him a dog, because he loves dogs and he lives by himself, and he really doesn't have communication with the outside world. My understanding is that he'll go out, for like an hour a day for a walk with protection around him. I don't know where he lives. I don't have his phone number. But his security, doesn't want him to have a dog, because if he has a dog, that means he has to, go outside, and he's got to walk the dog. He's not really able to communicate with his family. Hasn't seen his family for 4 years now. His wife and his kids are back in Russia. So I mean, this has been a crazy cost for blowing the whistle.
Didn't they take his wife and his children? Didn't they take their family home away?
Well, after he got here, and then all this started to unfold, what I was told is that they basically froze the assets of the family. He had a dacha, which is like a summer home, and apparently they seized that, and they seized bank accounts, and they brought in the family to interrogate him, and they took their passports. From what I've heard, is that his kids have their passports back, and the wife does too. But you can make the logical conclusion that they're hoping that they travel, because if they then go travel and they then go and see Grigory, right, they're going to be able to find him. But to my knowledge, the family has been pretty much left alone. It was bad for a little bit, but over the last few years, I've heard that that they're okay, and none of the family wants to come, because even if they do, then that means that their lives are now in isolation, in hiding. So for them to come and basically, visit Grigory, or to come and move, to be with him, because he could technically get his wife here now that he has asylum, but then her life is going to be in isolation, and she's got family back in Russia, so it's complicated.
And this goes on for the rest of his life.
Well, I mean, arguably for the rest of his life. I mean, when you look at, Michael Sherwitz of the New York Times did a story, I don't remember, it's probably about a year ago, and he was looking at all these kind of like murders that were tied to Putin and Russia. And one of the stories that he came out with was basically this guy who was living in the Ukraine. He was working for the gas company, right? And he, I can't remember if it was an attempted murder or no, the guy gets killed and they catch the guy, the assassin, who goes to kill him. And they put him up on trial. And when they catch this assassin, apparently he's got a piece of paper on him. It's got a list of names, right? Of like basically like, kill names. And this guy who they arrest, and I know I'm botching this story a little bit, and you can go back. It was in, part of the New York Times Daily. And this guy that they go and arrest basically goes, yes, I've been hired. I don't know why, but, my job is basically to kill these people. So they start going through the list, and none of these people are really known. It turns out that the guy that he had been hired to kill in the Ukraine, who was now living like a normal life in the Ukraine, he had apparently helped broker weapons deal to the Chechens, right? And this was like, 15 years ago. And here, this guy's living this quiet life in the Ukraine working for the power company, and 12 years later they come and get him. I mean, you look at the case of Skripal, the guy that they poisoned with Novichok a few years in Salisbury. That was another case where, the guy had...
That was in England, right?
Yeah, that was in England. The guy had been, out of sight, out of mind for 15 years. You look at even the poisoning of Alexander Litvinenko in 2006. Well, at the time that they actually poisoned Litvinenko with polonium, he had already been living in London for like 7 or 8 years. He had fled to the UK that long ago. So the whole piece that the Michael Sherwitz had wrote and put forward in the New York Times was essentially that, they don't forget, and there's just a list, and when they feel that they can strike, they do.
Catch new episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience for free only on Spotify. Watch back catalog JRE videos on Spotify, including clips. Easily, seamlessly switch between video and audio experience. On Spotify, you can listen to the JRE in the background while using other apps and can download episodes to save on data cost, all for free. Spotify is absolutely free. You don't have to have a premium account to watch new JRE episodes. You just need to search for the JRE on your Spotify app. Go to Spotify now to get this full episode of the Joe Rogan Experience.